The night of our 5th wedding anniversary, my husband suddenly said he wanted to help his first love's company through a tough time. He said, "Her company is on the verge of collapse. I just want to help her a little. Don't overthink our relationship." I argued with him for a long time. In the end, I even called my mother-in-law. Only then did he calm down a bit, but not long after. His first love's company still went bankrupt. She suffered a mental breakdown because of it. She chose to commit suicide. My husband pushed all the blame onto me. He mixed harmful chemicals into my skincare products, since I use them every day. My skin suffered severe damage. Ultimately, unable to face others, I chose to jump off a building. The day I planned to end my life, my husband finally stopped hiding his true thoughts. He accused me, saying, "It's all because you stopped me from helping Sophia. That's why she chose to jump. You must take responsibility for her death." As soon as I opened my eyes, I found myself back on the day my husband said he wanted to help his first love. Sophia's company is on the verge of collapse. I just want to help her. No other intentions. I absolutely have no other thoughts. When I opened my eyes again, I realized I had actually returned to the day my husband was preparing to help his first love. Just like before, he looked at me sincerely. He said, "Wife, I know that it might be hard for you to accept what I'm about to say, but I promise just this once. From now on, I will listen to you." I immediately became alert, and then I tightly grasped his hand. "Okay," I agreed. Ethan looked very confused. He said, "Did you not understand? I mean, I want to help Sophia's company. It might require a large investment." I chuckled softly, leaning back in my chair. "I understood. Sophia is both your first love. She's also our classmate. She's not doing well right now. Let's help her if we can." Ethan's expression relaxed. He said to me with a flattering smile, "You're the one who understands me the most, but I need to make it clear first. If this investment fails, I won't be able to do anything." He said, "But if her company improves in the future, she will definitely pay us back the principal and interest." After finishing his words, the surroundings suddenly became very quiet. This time, I still nodded in agreement. "It's fine. Let's just consider it a trial investment. I have confidence in Sophia. It's just that we're not financially comfortable right now. Helping her expand her business is not a problem. But after all, we are a couple. Let's not let this cause too much unhappiness. How about we pretend to be divorced for now? Once her company is stable, we can remarry." Upon hearing this, Ethan was momentarily stunned. He asked hesitantly, "We really have to get a divorce? You wouldn't take this chance to leave me, would you?" I replied coldly, "How could that be? I already said it's a fake divorce. This is for your own good." Perhaps he saw that I was too calm. Ethan seemed a bit uncomfortable instead. He said, "You weren't like this before. Every time I mentioned Sophia, we would argue fiercely. This time I was ready to give everything for her. How can you still be so calm?" I didn't say anything. I remembered what happened before. At that time, I directly refused Ethan's unreliable request. As a result, he held a grudge against me for that. Not only did he hide his frequent contact with Sophia from me, but after her company went bankrupt, he pushed all the blame onto me. What's worse is that, when I was sick, he deliberately gave me the wrong medication, causing my condition to worsen. I've suffered quite a bit. He also said, "If it weren't for you stopping me, how could Sophia's company collapse? My heart and feelings have always belonged to Sophia. No matter how you try to stop me, it's useless." Thinking of this, I looked at Ethan, who was waiting for my response. A slight sarcastic smile appeared on his lips. "Because you are my husband, any request you make, I will agree to. These 3 years, I've always gone along with Ethan. To him, I'm like someone who is always at his beck and call. So this time I readily agreed to his unreasonable request. He didn't find it strange. He happily pulled me to sit on the sofa. He said, "Dear, once this is settled, we'll live a good life together." But just thinking about what he did before, I feel that his current tenderness is particularly fake. Ethan's phone suddenly rang. He took a look. It's a call from his ex-girlfriend, Sophia. His eyes lit up. He quickly stood up and spoke. "Dear, I'm sorry. Sophia seems to have an urgent matter. I need to go over there." After saying that, he rushed out without even securing his coat. I looked at the empty room. My heart was filled with self-mockery. Ethan's previous business venture failed. He accumulated quite a bit of debt. Seeing him like this, it made me feel quite upset. I took out the money I had saved for a long time. I helped him pay off all his debts. During his startup phase, I cooked him nutritious meals in various styles every day. I also helped him with various chores. I just wanted him to focus on his career. At that time, he was deeply moved. He vowed to completely end his contact with Sophia. He decided to spend the rest of his life with me. However, not long after, he secretly met with Sophia behind my back. The relationship between the two has become increasingly ambiguous. I tried to calm myself down. I then contacted the private detective who had been helping me investigate Ethan and Sophia. The detective quickly sent back some news. Sophia has recently become addicted to gambling. She owes a lot of money. She is looking everywhere to borrow money. A cold smile appeared at the corner of my mouth. I secretly came up with a plan. I deliberately posted a status update on my social media. I mentioned that I recently discovered a foolproof investment project. Unfortunately, I didn't have enough money on hand. After seeing the message, Ethan rushed back that night. He anxiously asked me what the project was. I pretended to hesitate for a moment. Then I replied, "Actually, it was introduced by a friend of mine. The return on investment is quite high, though the risk is a bit greater. I originally wanted to bring you in on it, but you've been busy dealing with Sophia lately, so I didn't bring it up. I didn't say a word." Ethan's eyes lit up. "Hurry up and say it, dear. This kind of good thing, we have to get involved." I was secretly pleased, but I pretended to be reluctant on the outside. "Honey, all our money went to Sophia. There's no money left at home." Ethan frowned, but then I thought about the investment profits I had analyzed for him before. He gritted his teeth. "How about you borrow some money, honey? My credit isn't good. I tried applying for a loan a few days ago, but it wasn't approved." I had guessed Ethan would think like this, so I took out the fake application records I had prepared in advance. As expected, Ethan was very surprised when he saw it. "What should we do now?" I frowned and thought for a moment. "How about you let Sophia borrow some money? After all our money is with her." "That's not possible. The interest on loan sharks is too high." Ethan frowned. His tone was filled with dissatisfaction. "Sophia's business failed, and she is in a lot of debt. You know that too. Now, which institution would still be willing to lend her money? But I am firm in my stance. There's no sign of backing down at all. What does this have to do with me? If you want to participate in this project, you need to prepare the funds first. Look at how resolute I am." Ethan has also stopped insisting. In the days that followed, Ethan brought her to his home, claiming she needed to avoid her debts. He explained to others that he was just helping her hide from her creditors. Don't think too much about it. But when I saw Sophia walking around my house in my slippers, moving about freely, I was instantly furious. I really wanted to kick her out immediately. Yet Ethan thought I was just being jealous. He argued with me several times about it. To please Sophia, he even made me responsible for her meals. I simply couldn't stand it. I really can't stand it. So I asked someone to find a nanny back home. I directly introduced this nanny to Ethan. Ethan said, "I found you a nanny. She is a professional. Now you don't need me, right?" Although Ethan was unwilling in his heart, he couldn't find a reason to object. He could only reluctantly agree. The nanny worked very efficiently. In less than a week, Sophia noticeably gained weight. I secretly laughed to myself. Actually, I knew what the nanny was adding to the food, but I didn't say anything. I still went to work at the company as usual. One day, I was checking the surveillance in the office. I found Sophia and Ethan being intimate on the living room sofa. After the last incident, I installed several cameras at home. I didn't expect Ethan to be so reckless. Seeing them like that, I felt a wave of nausea. I felt particularly uncomfortable. I immediately left work early. I drove home at high speed. Ethan was surprised to see me come back suddenly. I was startled. I quickly pushed Sophia away from me. "Don't get me wrong, we just got a little too close. Really, we didn't do anything," he explained nervously. I wore a stern expression. "I didn't want to pretend anymore. Put your clothes on before you speak. You really look like you haven't done anything." Sophia's face flushed with embarrassment. She gave me a provocative look. "Even if we actually did something, so what? You are already divorced. What right do you have to interfere? You should know your place. Don't meddle in others' business, or you'll just make things unpleasant for yourself." I let out a cold laugh. Without saying a word, I raised my hand and gave her a loud slap. Sophia's face immediately swelled up. She shouted angrily. "What gives you the right to hit me?" she yelled loudly. "I'm going to call the police. Make you compensate." I ignored her, directly pressed down on her. Both hands tightly gripped her neck. Ethan was nearby trying to mediate, but was scared out of his wits. "Emma, calm down a bit. What are you going to do?" Only then did I slowly loosen my grip. I found that Sophia had fainted from lack of oxygen. Then, he dragged her into the bathroom. woke her up by splashing her with cold water. He questioned, "The good deed you did. You thought I really didn't know," and even called the police. "This is my home. You are trespassing." Sophia was coughing heavily, looking at me in fear. Ethan immediately ran over and hugged her, glaring at me angrily. "You should leave. You went too far." I smiled coldly, did not argue with them, just turned around and left, went to the law firm. When Sophia came home with the divorce agreement, she found that she had already left. Ethan locked himself in the bedroom, no matter how much I knocked on the door. She wouldn't open the door. "Aren't you pretty tough?" I shouted at the closed door. "If you have the guts, open the door and let me in." Seeing that he didn't respond, I simply sat in the living room, opened my computer and played the video of him with Sophia from before. In the quiet room, the sound was particularly jarring. Not long after, Ethan stormed out in a rage. He yanked the power from the computer. "You actually spied on me. Why did you install a camera in the house? You are so unreasonable." He glared at me in anger. He harshly accused me. I looked back at him expressionlessly, handing him the divorce agreement. I calmly said, "Sign this, then pack your things and leave." Ethan took the agreement, seeing the terms that left him with almost nothing. He immediately widened his eyes in surprise. He questioned, "What do you mean by this? How can you treat me like this? I won't sign it. You have no right to leave me with nothing." He angrily threw the agreement back at me. "If you don't sign, I will sue you in court. At that time, the things between you and Sophia that cannot be made public will all be exposed." I shook the hard drive in my hand. "It contains the videos. You think if these videos get out, you and Sophia can still hold your heads up in public?" Ethan was shaking with anger. He glared at me fiercely. Then he slammed the door and left. I didn't stop him. I directly called the property management to have them delete Ethan's access information. They also told the security not to let Sophia in from now on. But unexpectedly, Ethan had a way. He actually went to complain to my parents. After work, I returned to my parents' house. I saw Ethan and my furious parents sitting in the living room. I immediately understood what was going on. "Daughter, what happened to you? How did things come to a divorce with Ethan?" My dad frowned. His tone was filled with dissatisfaction. "Yeah, is there any problem between you two that can't be discussed properly? Why does it have to escalate to this point?" My mom chimed in from the side. I took a deep breath. I recounted all the disgraceful things Ethan and Sophia did. After hearing that, my parents' expressions immediately darkened. Ethan lowered his head. He didn't dare to look at anyone. My parents said angrily, "How could you do such a thing? We've always treated you well." My mom stood up in anger. She wanted to go teach Ethan a lesson. At that moment, Ethan suddenly looked up. He shouted, "It was her who agreed to my contact with Sophia." The nanny interjected. "When I was at home, I saw Mr. Ethan and Mtkes Sophia were quite close." After my dad heard this, he immediately understood my pain. He turned to Ethan and said seriously, "No matter what you did is wrong. Go apologize to my daughter right now. If she doesn't forgive you, this marriage is definitely over." Then, my mom turned around and scolded Ethan again. Ethan stood there, with his head down, not saying a word. I watched this scene and felt nothing inside. I said to my parents, "Please stop arguing. The divorce agreement is already prepared. I hope he can sign it soon. Dealing with his and Sophia's matters during this time has exhausted me. I really don't have the energy to get involved in these disputes anymore. Daughter, he knows he was wrong. Can't you give him a chance?" My mom has a traditional mindset. She wants to persuade me to change my mind. Ethan raised his head. His eyes were red. "Are you really that heartless? After so many years of feelings, you just say to give up and you give up." As he spoke, he moved closer to me. I turned to the side to avoid him. A look of disgust appeared on my face. "When you cheated, why didn't you consider our years of feelings? Now you're pretending to be pitiful. It's already too late," I said coldly. "Remember, don't cause trouble in my house so that everyone is not affected." My dad sighed, advising me, "Ethan, things have come to this. You two should just separate well. It's you who wronged my daughter. Don't entangle anymore." But Ethan is still unwilling to give up. Suddenly, he knelt down with a thud. "I know I was wrong. Please forgive me. I really can't live without you." My mom saw the situation. She also helped to persuade. "Dear, why don't you think it over again? He has already done this." I frowned. My tone was somewhat impatient. "Mom, stop talking. My mind is made up. If he doesn't sign the agreement, I will take legal action." Seeing me so determined, Ethan slowly stood up. His eyes revealed a sense of determination. "Fine, don't regret it. After he said that, he stormed out angrily. I thought this matter would just pass. But a few days later, Ethan actually brought his parents to my door. As soon as he entered, his mother started crying and shouting. "This life is unbearable. My son has been bullied by your family like this. You need to give us an explanation." She cried while slapping her thigh with her hand. Ethan's father said with a serious expression, "Our Ethan is indeed at fault, but it doesn't mean he should be kicked out of the house. If a divorce is to happen, we should at least receive reasonable compensation." I looked at them acting unreasonable. I was extremely angry inside. I thought to myself, compensation. When he betrayed me back then, did he ever think it would come to this? Now he still wants to come and ask me for money. What a pipe dream. Neither side is willing to back down. The noise attracted the neighbors. Ethan's family saw more and more onlookers. They became even more unruly. They even cried and shouted at my doorstep. I really couldn't take it anymore. I immediately called the police. After the police arrived, they asked about what happened. They advised them to calm down. Ethan's family quieted down a bit, but they still refused to give up. After the police mediation, Ethan said he wanted to talk to me privately. I agreed to him. I followed him to the side. He said, "I know I was wrong. Can you give me another chance for the sake of our past relationship?" Ethan's eyes were filled with pleading. "I have given you a chance before. It was you who didn't cherish it. It's too late to say these things now. If you still care about our past relationship, then hurry up and sign the agreement. Don't disturb me again in the future." My tone was calm. There was no fluctuation in my heart. Ethan was silent for a while. Finally, he nodded and said, "Okay, I will sign, but you have to promise me. If I encounter difficulties in the future, you have to help me," I said coldly. "Let's sign the agreement first." After Ethan signed the agreement, I informed the police as agreed that I would no longer pursue this matter. But a few days later, Ethan's mother came looking for me again. "My daughter, didn't you say that investment project was quite stable before? I invested all my retirement savings into it. Why is there still no news at all?" I slightly raised the corner of my mouth. With a complex expression, I said, "Auntie, actually, that investment project failed a long time ago. I was afraid you would worry before, so I didn't dare to tell you." I immediately sent her a screenshot of the fake loss report my friend helped me with. Seeing those loss numbers all in red, Ethan's mom staggered, almost fainted. She pointed at me and said, "It was you who made me invest. You have to compensate me. I will definitely take responsibility. However, the emergency money you borrowed from me before just happens to offset this matter," I answered calmly. Only then did she realize. She stood on her tiptoes and shouted, "You did it on purpose. You were planning to scam my money from the very beginning. You have no conscience at all." I really don't want to hear her keep shouting. I just hung up the phone. Although this amount of money isn't too much for me, even if it's wasted for nothing, I will definitely not give any more to Ethan's family. As expected, Ethan's mother was so angry that she was hospitalized. Ethan came to confront me in a rage. "I already agreed to the divorce. Why are you still making things difficult for my mom? That money is her hard-earned retirement fund. You should at least return part of it to her. I won't tolerate it anymore." I directly retaliated. "Your family has borrowed so much money from me. Have I ever pressured you to pay it back? This is all money you owe me." After saying that, I hung up the phone without hesitation. Then I blocked everyone from Ethan's family except him. A few days later, I successfully made an appointment at the Civil Affairs Bureau to process the divorce. Send the time to Ethan. Remind him to be there on time, but he hasn't replied to my messages. I told him, "If you don't come, I will file for divorce directly. Don't think about playing any tricks." Seeing that he didn't respond, I sent him a message warning him. Ethan was also angry. He replied, "Fine. Let's get divorced then. Don't regret it later." The next day, we agreed to meet at the Civil Affairs Bureau. After a few days, Ethan looked a bit haggard. She still didn't give up. She said, "I'll give you one last chance. As long as you admit your mistake, I will go home with you." I immediately shook my head. "I have made myself very clear. I have no feelings for you anymore." Ethan coldly snorted. "Fine. Then let's break up. Don't come crying to ask me back later." The moment I received the divorce certificate, I felt completely relieved. Ethan shot me a cold glance. Then he turned and took a taxi to the hospital. As soon as I stepped out of the Civil Affairs Bureau, he immediately called Sophia. He even deliberately called her baby in a sugary tone. Clearly, he wanted me to hear it, but I felt nothing at all. My heart was completely calm. I turned around and went back to the office. I continued discussing work with clients. Without Ethan's annoying troubles, my work efficiency improved significantly. At the end of the workday, I successfully signed 2 contracts I didn't expect. Just as I reached my front door, Ethan's mother suddenly rushed out and startled me. With previous experience, this time she stood at the door alone demanding money. "You can choose whether to call the police or not. I won't leave. You took my money. It must be returned to me today." She firmly believed that I secretly took that investment money. She even threatened that if I didn't pay back, she wouldn't leave. "What's the point of making a scene like this?" I said. "I won't give it. I'm just not going to give it." I looked at her coldly. I said, "And I've already divorced Ethan. To me now, you're just a stranger. Listen to me say this." Ethan's mother's expression changed immediately. "When did you get divorced? How come I didn't know anything about it? Don't think you can just easily get rid of my son. It's not that simple. I will definitely not let you go." I couldn't control my anger anymore. I suddenly shook off her hand. I said coldly, "You can call me however you want. I don't have time to deal with you." Ethan's mother was so angry her face turned red. She cried and fussed at the door for a while. Finally, she stormed off angrily. I ignored her. I went straight into the kitchen. I simply made dinner. After eating, I went back to my room to rest. I forgot all those worries. At that moment, Ethan and Sophia actually started borrowing money for their wedding. They even sent me an invitation. Sophia said on the phone, a bit smugly. Ethan said, "Even if it means spending all the money, he still wants to give me the best wedding." I was taken aback, because I knew Ethan's financial situation wasn't good. Besides borrowing from loan sharks, he couldn't gather enough money for the wedding. "All right, I will definitely go." I came back to my senses. I replied with a smile. Sophia seemed surprised by my calmness. On the phone, she tried to probe a bit more. I immediately hung up the phone. I didn't want to say another word to her. 3 days later, I attended Sophia and Ethan's wedding. They were dressed in gorgeous outfits. They looked very matched. "It seems like we were meant to be together from the start." Sophia saw me. She said with a hint of provocation in her tone, "Before, Ethan was with you. Those days were quite oppressive. Now things have finally improved." I nodded slightly. My tone was calm. "You are right. Since you are so capable, you probably don't mind this little gift money from me." After saying that, I turned and entered the hall. The wedding was progressing step by step. It was time for the exchange of vows. Ethan casually glanced my way. That glance made me reminisce about the time when we first started dating. He was like that back then. So gentle and considerate, always thinking about our future, full of hope. But now, everything has changed. It has become completely different, just as I was lost in these memories. The main door of the hall was suddenly pushed open forcefully. A group of intimidating people suddenly burst in. They headed straight for Ethan on the stage. The leader shouted loudly, "You still owe us money, and you still have the nerve to hold a wedding here. Hurry up and pay back the money." Ethan's face turned pale all at once. He pleaded with a trembling voice, "Brothers, can you wait until the wedding is over? We can talk properly then." Sophia tightly held onto Ethan. She asked loudly, "What are you talking about? If you keep causing trouble, I will call the police." Look at her expression. It seems she has no idea about Ethan's debt. Until those people took out the IOU and video evidence, Sophia finally realized what was happening. She stood there dumbfounded. This group was causing chaos at the wedding scene. Tables and chairs were knocked over. Decorations were scattered everywhere. Ethan was tightly grabbed by them. He was trembling in fear. Sophia wants to call the police, but her wrist is firmly stepped on by someone. She looks at me in panic, shouting for help loudly. "Ethan is already like this. Are you just going to watch and do nothing?" Those people hear her cries. They turn to ask me, "What is your relationship with him?" I have a calm expression. I shake my head and say, "This has nothing to do with me. I'm just an outsider." Upon hearing my answer, Ethan's previously hopeful gaze suddenly dims. His face is filled with despair. I turn around and leave the auditorium without hesitation. There's chaos behind me. This is all caused by Ethan himself, to show off in front of me. He was foolish enough to borrow from loan sharks to hold this wedding. As soon as I get in the car, I head straight to the company. I leave all the chaos from the wedding behind. Sophia is physically weak. Those people shouldn't go too far with her. Ethan has a stubborn personality. I estimate there will be some setbacks. However, these no longer have anything to do with me. I've been busy day and night during this time. The company is finally approaching a critical point for going public. However, at this crucial moment, Ethan's family has started causing trouble again. Ethan's mother once again demanded so-called compensation from me. I refused. Unexpectedly, she actually went live with Ethan, crying in front of the camera and accusing me. They distorted the facts, accusing me of not only leaving Ethan, but also ignoring her and her family, not willing to spend even a penny. Not long after, some netizens who didn't understand the situation exposed my personal information. They are all criticizing me, saying that someone like me is unqualified to be a company owner, and boycotting my company on multiple platforms. As a result, the company's stock price plummeted. Even those investors who were originally optimistic about the company began to waver. Late at night, the investors called me. There was a tone full of dissatisfaction. "What exactly are you doing? Don't you know how important reputation is for the company?" I suppressed the anger inside me. I patiently explained the ins and outs of the situation to the investors, but I was very angry about Ethan's family's actions. Fortunately, my performance and reputation in the industry have always been good. Everyone sees it. No one is pulling out their investment at this time. I immediately found a professional PR team. Let them handle it quickly. Control the public opinion. Ethan called me. His tone was full of provocation and pride. "Stop messing around. No one will believe what you say. Be smart and give me the money quickly. I promise not to live stream again, and I won't let anyone speak ill of you." I ignored her words. I hung up the phone directly. The company quickly made arrangements. I immediately held a clarification press conference. This matter has caused a big stir. There were particularly many people at the press conference. I had just walked in. I heard someone cursing at me. I calmly walked onto the stage. I spoke into the microphone. "Regarding the recent controversies, I have enough evidence to prove that those are all false rumors." Then, I displayed all the evidence I had collected during this time on the big screen. Ethan saw this scene from the audience. He panicked at once. He wanted to rush onto the stage to stop me, but he was stopped by security in time. I looked at him coldly. I said to everyone, "This is my ex-husband. The reason for our divorce is that he had an affair with his first love." Ethan still wanted to explain, but the big screen had already shown intimate photos of him and his first love, although the key parts were blurred out. Suddenly, the discussions in the audience came to a halt. Ethan clearly didn't expect me to be so ruthless. I directly exposed his disgraceful acts. Every word I said today, I am willing to bear legal responsibility for. At the same time, I hope everyone will refrain from speaking ill of me and my company in the future. Otherwise, I will definitely pursue this to the end. That's all I have to say. I had the police take Ethan and his mother away. This time, no matter how they plead with me, I am resolute not to settle. No one expected this. The company ended up benefiting from it instead. The stock price surged quite a bit. Everyone's opinion of me has completely changed. Seeing this, I even felt a sense of relief. After all, this effect is better than spending a lot on advertising. But when Sophia learned this news in the hospital, her emotions were greatly stimulated. When I went to visit her at the hospital, she was already too weak to speak. When she saw me, her eyes were filled with anger and resentment. She tried hard to sit up. I gently pushed her back down onto the bed. "Don't worry, I won't harm you. Now your company has collapsed. Ethan still owes money to loan sharks. You tell me, who is helping whom between you two now? Listen to my words." She glared at me fiercely. Her eyes were filled with resentment. I pulled over a chair, sitting by the edge of the bed, silently watching her face full of despair and unwillingness. I asked her, "You are like this now. Why do you still let them go against me? What are they really after?" Her eyes widened suddenly, as if to ask me how I knew she was behind it. I gave a cold smile and continued to speak. With the wisdom of her and her son, how could they possibly come up with such a trick? What a pity. In the end, you still lost to me. After saying that, I turned to leave the ward. Suddenly, I heard a heavy thud from behind. I instinctively turned around to look. I found Sophia had fallen straight to the ground. Recently, she has been under the dual pressure of debt and emotional issues. I'm already exhausted both physically and mentally. On top of that, I heard the bad news about the company's bankruptcy and Ethan getting into a loan shark crisis at the hospital. Her spirit was nearly shattered. At this moment, she struggled to lift her head. Her lips were trembling. She barely managed to say 2 words, "I hate," before she could finish her sentence. She stopped breathing, looking at her distorted face. I felt a deep sense of discomfort, the jealousy and resentment I had for her. At this moment, it turned into a sigh. I drove straight to the police station. when Ethan came out of the police station. His hair was a mess. He looked very fatigued. He was completely different from the energetic person he used to be. As soon as he saw me, his eyes were instantly filled with anger. "Emma, what exactly do you want to do?" He shouted at me loudly. I ignored his anger. I calmly replied, "Let me tell you something. Sophia has passed away. I heard the news." Ethan's face turned pale all of a sudden. His body swayed. He could hardly stand. "What did you say, Sophia? She has passed away?" he asked in disbelief. His voice trembled a bit. I nodded. "Yes, she is dead. Haven't you always been thinking about her? Now you can finally let go of that thought." He kept murmuring, "How could this happen? How could this happen?" His gaze was vacant. It seemed hard to believe what was happening before him. He recalled the past. He betrayed me for Sophia. Now Sophia has left in such a decisive way. His world seemed to collapse in an instant. Seeing him in pain, complex feelings surged within me. "Ethan, no matter how much you cry, the outcome won't change. Sophia's death was caused by yourselves. You were only focused on pursuing so-called love, but forgot about morals and responsibilities. This is the price you have to pay now." He raised his head. His eyes were filled with resentment. "Emma, you are truly cold-hearted. Don't you care about feelings at all?" I let out a cold laugh. "When you and Sophia were together in secret, did you consider my feelings?" Many nights, I cried alone. It hurt deeply inside. Now, I only feel that all of this is what you deserve. I have the right to seek justice for myself." Ethan's eyes suddenly filled with fear, as if he understood something. "You, what exactly did you do? Did you hurt her?" I shrugged. I said with a heavy tone, "I didn't do anything. I just watched you walk towards failure step by step. Sophia's death was caused by herself. She couldn't bear the continuous blows. In the end, she chose to escape. And you, Ethan, you owe me. I will take it back bit by bit. You betrayed our relationship. You deeply hurt me. Now you must face the consequences of your actions." He took a step back. His eyes were filled with fear. "Emma, how could you do this to me?" I smiled coldly. "Ethan, you were the one who first betrayed our relationship. Now, you must bear the consequences. The law will deal with you. I won't hold back anymore." I was about to turn and leave. Ethan called out to me from behind. "Emma, wait a minute, don't go, forgive me." I stopped, but I didn't turn around. I said it coldly. "Ethan, do you think I would still forgive you? The things you did with Sophia have already made it unbearable for me. You destroyed the feelings between us with your own hands. It's too late to say anything now." He hurriedly caught up with me. He grabbed the corner of my clothes. His eyes were filled with pleading. He said, "I know I was wrong. I truly know I was wrong. Please give me another chance. I promise I won't make the same mistake again." I turned around. I looked at him coldly. "You talk about chances. When have you ever given me a chance? Now, you can only reflect well before the law, Emma. I sincerely plead with you. I really can't go to prison. As long as you're willing to help me, I'm willing to do anything." I slowly pried his hand open. His tone was icy cold. "When you betrayed me back then, did you ever think this would be the outcome? This is the path you chose for yourself. You have to take responsibility. That's all I have to say." I turned and walked away. Without looking back, Ethan's cries gradually faded away. The heaviness in my heart also dissipated. Now, I am left with only faint memories of the past and new hopes for the future.